come in online. We'll give people our experiences on our closings, as we've had a number of closings personally, and we've helped clients literally close hundreds and hundreds of these. And we have hundreds of more to go this year and in the coming years. First off, when you have an upcoming closing coming up, when you get that notification, typically you get a notification 60 to 90 days before, if you've bought a Truman property. Minto seems to be a little bit shorter, but Truman typically gives 60 to 90 days for when they're closing. So you have plenty of time to start organizing yourself. And the first thing you want to do when you get that notice, and even before you get that notice, if you know you have a closing this year, is start your process to get your mortgage for the property. Very, very, very important to do. And on top of that, it's important to use someone that is experiencing closing these pre-construction Calgary condos. Now, Niesh, or I think I'll give, because this is so important. I know you both have stories like this. We'll start with Niesh. We'll start with you, number one, Kyle, number two. Niesh, what has been your experience with people when they have not used people that are experienced with closing Calgary pre-construction properties? Have they lost their properties? Have they lost money? I'll spoilers for what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, to that point, Alex, it's really two outcomes. Either they're paying over $20,000 in fees because they don't get their funding in time and there's complications, which causes them to request extensions, which again aren't always granted. So they wind up paying these fees. And to the earlier point, if they're not granted, then you lose the property and you wind up losing your deposit. And not to scare anyone, but you also open yourself up to litigation, right? They can come after you for financial losses that they incur. So don't use people that don't have experience, or better yet, licensed in Alberta as a mortgage agent.
And I'll even jump in. Don't, for me, when I get mortgages, yes, rate is important. But what's more important than rate is getting the mortgage. So, Niesh, you had it one time where someone had a mortgage lined up, and then they decided, I can go out there and get a better rate. And they did, well, I think it was like they started this process 2 weeks before closing because they thought they'd get a better rate.
Yeah, 3 weeks to save maybe less than a quarter point on
So
their variable rates.
yeah, and what happened was, they weren't able to get that mortgage in time to try to save that quarter point. They didn't close on the property in time. Builder took the property back, so they lost their deposit on the property, which was 10% of the purchase price. And then the property was also up $100,000. So they lost their deposit, which probably was about $50,000, if I'm gonna guess. Maybe
Yeah, exactly. 50-ish.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then $100,000 of upside, so $150,000 loss to try to save a quarter point. And this is when people ask me, Alex, who are you getting your mortgage with? My reply is the person that's going to give me the money. And we have a list of preferred mortgage vendors that we use that we will share with you after this, because we know the people that know how to get the mortgages done in Calgary, and then on top of that, they know how specifically the builders work there and their expectations on time frame and when money is to be funded. There's nothing more stressful than mortgage stress. I've been through it 20 plus times. So it's a very, very important. That's why it's the number one thing we're talking about right now. Very, very important to, when you get your notice, or if you know you have a closing coming up in 2025. And if you have any questions on it, is my property closing in 2025? Send us an email. We will let you know when we expect your property to close, because things are a lot easier to deal with if we have lots of time. Things are very difficult and very expensive to deal with when you have little to no time left. So, and now Kyle, I jumped in, but you also have stories where people don't use. Yeah, you have recently had stories where people didn't use the right mortgage people. I think in December, and how it just costs them
Yep.
tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And that's why this is number one, because it's the number one issue that clients face. By far, hands down, mortgages have been the most challenging for a million different reasons. And it's mainly because those inexperienced people or people that don't work a lot in Alberta, not licensed there, they don't necessarily understand how the process works. In Toronto and the GTA, you can get a mortgage relatively quickly. But out in Alberta, there are certain key differences that have tripped up a lot of people and caused a lot of issues. And this is why you want to be working with one of those professionals. I just had this come up where a client, the funds, they got transferred after, I think it was 2 p.m. in the afternoon on his closing day. Properties in Alberta close at noon. He didn't close on time. He got hit with additional fees and penalties. It's this sort of stuff that you can easily avoid by using those experts. Don't use a friend or family member. Use a professional that is going to be able to get this deal done on time. Because even if you're 1 second late, you are legally in breach of contract. The case law is very, very clear here. If you don't close on time, you are screwed. So,
Yeah. Yes, 1000%. And that's not just, and for the record, that's just not Alberta. That's Ontario too. If like people sometimes go like, "Oh, they're so mean out there." I can send you the articles in Toronto as well, where they do the exact same thing in Toronto. Um, Not everyone does it, but the law, 1 second late, it is very, very clear. There's case law for it. If you're 1 second late, the builder has control. And they can do what they choose. And typically what would they see? They charge you extra money or they take the property away. So you just don't want to expose yourself to that. We don't want to be alarmist to people, but it's very, very easy to avoid all these situations. If you just start with this, you have plenty of time to do all this. That's why that's number one on the list. Number two on the list is the time frame for closing, because again, there are some things that are different in Alberta that they don't have in Ontario, and specifically, what trips up a lot of people is they require wet signatures in Alberta. So Nish, I'm going to throw it to you just talking about timeframes because you have an excellent email that goes out to clients that just prepares people for getting ready for closings and timeframes they can expect.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can never be too early, folks, and that's I think the message that we all want to resonate here and echo is you can never start planning too far in advance because the more preparation you have, the easier it is for you to secure time with the right people to get the right things done. So to the point that Alex made, in Alberta, you do require wet signatures, meaning you physically have to sign the document and then you have to ship that to your lawyer so then they can take that to the appropriate offices to register the title. Now, for this to happen, you have to set up a Zoom call with the lawyer. So it has to fit their schedule as well. And with all the closings happening, you can only imagine the number of meetings that they already have booked. So the quicker you get your name on that schedule, and as far in advance as you could possibly do that, the better it is for you because that gives them the right time or the amount of time to do all the additional steps to make sure that you have a uncompromised closing. There's other elements like getting the insurance for your property. You do require landlord insurance. Your mortgage lender will want to see proof of that, and so does the developer. So you need to have that in advance, typically 7 to 10 days, business days in advance. And we provide you with the options and the different references to reach out to. So make use of those contacts because they also are experts in these properties. So they will be able to get you the right type of coverage. Utilities, also quite important. So there are a number of steps that you need to take before you're ready to close. And we do our very best to itemize those steps for you. We connect you with the experts so they can guide you as well. And we're here to help. So as long as you're following the steps that we've outlined, trust me, we've gone through it. All of us here have closed on properties in Alberta multiple times. We've helped hundreds of our clients do the same. And we've also seen the other side of things where people aren't necessarily following the suggestions that we are sharing with them. And at the end of the day, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So our goal here isn't to scare you or to alarm you that, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a crazy endeavor. No, it's simple steps to take, but you have to start in advance so it doesn't seem as overwhelming where you're scrambling during the last 2 weeks leading into your closing. That is something that is not fun, not a position that you want to be in.
No, and Niesh is exactly right. Like we're going to outline everything for you, the steps to take, the time frame to do these in, because we have to be an alarmist now, because we will be alarmist if you haven't done these things in 2 weeks prior to closing. And I will tell you, I was the first person to close in this group to close a property in Toronto. I made these mistakes personally. I have personally made these mistakes. I didn't know there was wet signatures required in Alberta, and the mortgage broker I was using at that time didn't know there was wet signatures required in Alberta. And when I was closing, they're like, "Well, what's the issue? I do these in Toronto all the time, and they I can get you instructions in this time." And the lawyer's like, "No, they're wet signatures. You have to courier this." And I needed to get an extension from the builder. I forgot about insurance. And because the first property I bought was actually a house, and I couldn't use my existing insurance broker in Ontario because they don't do Alberta. So then I was scrambling to find an insurance broker at the last minute to do my property in Alberta. I have personally lived through the pains of these steps because of buying a property so early in this process. So not only do we see clients go through it, I have lived it myself, so that you guys don't have to. So when we say this, like we've lived it, and we've seen people deal with it as well, in a stressful circumstance.
And that's where you can leverage our experience as well, because we see this on a daily basis and just about every possible issue that could go wrong. We've had clients wait too long to sign those wet signature documents. They've had to fly out to Calgary to go to the lawyer's office. That was the only way to get it done in time without requiring an extension. Even things like insurance. I had 6 people that wanted to be on a policy. Their insurance provider wasn't able to do that. So we were able to find solutions for them. So if anything comes up, we are here to support you through your closing process. Just reach out and leverage our experience.
Yeah. Great point, Kyle. And talking about the insurance side of it, if we have enough time, there's a solution out there. And if you get an email from us going, "Hey, you're going to have to fly to do this," we're not joking. We're serious. Get on there, book that flight, because you're going to have to fly to Alberta now, because the wet signatures, they're not going to be shipped in time. So you're going to have to meet the lawyer in person to sign those. So again, just things we've experienced, things that we've told people that they have to do, but again, with enough advance notice. Well, actually, we'll give a great example of advance notice. Niesh, what about the time there was actually an issue of shipping the wet documents and then they got sent back, but because you had prepared the client so well, everything still closed on time. Just if there was documents from BC to Calgary. So tell that story quickly.
So this was another real estate agent. So, it even impacted her, but because we started far enough in this process, she still had time to close without incurring those costs. So a couple of things were happening during this time frame. There was a long weekend coming up, and there was an error that was made by the shipping department. I think it was UPS or FedEx, whichever company that they use, they had made a mistake. So because they couldn't deliver the paperwork to the appropriate place because of the long weekend, it came back. And there was no communication happening. When the package came back to the distribution center, they never contacted the client to let them know, because to them, they don't know the importance of these documents. But on the receiving end, they never got it. So it took a while to trace exactly where the package was. Eventually found out, or eventually determined that it was back at the distribution center locally in Vancouver. So this allowed the client of mine, who again is an agent, had some contacts, was then able to go in person, grab the documentation, take it to another company that was willing to do an overnight package for them to get it to the right people at the right time, and they were able to make it happen. So yes, very inconvenient. She even had a new baby, from what I remember, maybe a 2 or 3 week old baby. But with all these things happening, like it would have been almost impossible for her to make this happen if there wasn't enough time. So make sure that you do these things well in advance. The time frames that we are sharing with you gives grace period as well, but do it earlier if you can. There's no harm doing that, right? Because you want to be able to account for anything that might go sideways. As we know, things don't always happen the way we want them to happen, and there's so many variables outside of our control. So giving yourself that buffer will always be helpful if things go sideways.
So just trust us on that. I shouldn't just trust us, like trust us on that, because these are the things that we've experienced. And again, if you follow the steps, you're going to be okay.
Alex, just one other
Yeah.
quick thing we're talking about when we talk about a third party,
Mm-hmm.
appraisals. Your
Mhm.
lender will require appraisals. It's not like a resale property where the bank can just schedule a specific date to go and see the property. The appraisers have to go to a construction site sometimes because not all the the units are going to be ready. So the bandwidth that the developers have is very limited. They're going to only have 2 or 3 people that can help the appraisers go to the units or show them what they need to show in order to appraise the property. So when you're dealing with the lenders, and thankfully our lenders deal with the right appraisers, but it's also in your best interest to remind them, hey, get these appraisers to contact the right people at Truman with enough time so you can go in and get in there just in case your first appointment is rescheduled or canceled for whatever reason. It gives you enough time to make that happen. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, and there is a specific contact at Truman as well. There's an email to send the appraisal request, and then that's coordinated with the construction site. So I see that's one of the questions that we received.
That just reminds me of Elon Musk and X at the White House with his kid running around.
I just had to bribe them. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Appraisals are a component, and sometimes, and we're going to include this contact in there. Sometimes a building will have what's known as a blanket appraisal, and you don't need to worry about the appraisals, but you'll have to go through the right contacts to get the mortgage from that party. But we'll include that in our post-closing if you just want to avoid the appraisal process altogether. When you have a blanket appraisal in a building, what that means is you don't need to worry about what the value of the appraisal is going to come out at. The bank has already pre-appraised the building. You don't have to worry about an appraisal appointment. They're going to base the mortgage on the price on the contract, and that contact will be included in the email as well. So continuing on, if the building offers a blanket appraisal, continuing on, we get a lot of questions also about people wanting to rent their units out. So if you've opted out of your rental guarantee program, if it's a building with a rental guarantee program, you probably wonder, how am I going to rent the unit out? So what you want to do is we'll provide our list of preferred property management clients. How it works in Alberta is realtors don't rent out properties on MLS like we do in Toronto. You would hire a property management company that would then do the leasing of the property for you. And then most likely you're going to use that property management company to manage the unit on your behalf as well. Now, because we are in the winter, we're dealing with an increased supply of inventory at the time. So I would say factor in maybe about 2 to 3 months that the property may be vacant while you wait to get the unit leased out. Also, you want to be competitive on the rental rate that you're listing the property for lease, but the property manager will guide you on that. But my advice, and this be my advice in Toronto as well, when you first get a property, don't be greedy on the rent you're trying to get. Price it aggressively because you have an absorption period. And the absorption period is the time that you need to get the whole building leased out. So you want to be more competitive on your rent than try to get the highest rent possible for the property.
And I have a great example for that. In Toronto, I just took occupancy of a condo there, and I'm on the 3rd floor. I was one of the first units to get possession. And I saw a wave of units coming. So in the area, one bedrooms were renting for around 2,100, but I saw all of the units from the building coming. I cut my rent to 1975. I got it rented within a week. 2 weeks later, 143 units available for rent in the building. That is incredible competition. Now rents are even below the rent that I got for it. So instead of trying to wait for 2,100, then reduce to 2,000 and then 1950, sit on the market a couple months, I just reduced it off the bat, got someone in there, got income coming in. And then I don't have to deal with it. There's no stress. It's rented and taken care of. So definitely echoing that advice, be aggressive on your rent, trying to get someone in there, get through this absorption period. At closing or at occupancy, it'll be the worst kind of rental situation that there ever will be, just because there's the most amount of supply in the building that there ever will be at that point.
And that
Yeah,
flows
great point.
into, oh, go ahead, Niesh.
So to further to what Kyle was saying, also what I found to be very useful with my properties and what I'm recommending to the clients that I'm working with is, once you've decided that you're opting out of the rental guarantee program, if that's the route that you're going, contact a property management company, whether it's the ones that we're recommending or if you already have one established that you're going to be using, get your name on the list, because they will most likely go on a first come, first serve basis when they're looking at comparable units. So the higher you are up on the list of potential landlords looking to lease out your unit, they will show your property before other properties. They'll work with you in order to get your unit secured. So don't wait till the last minute to contact the property management company, because now you will be buried and you'll have, even a longer waiting period to get your property leased, and most likely will have to further compromise on what you're going to be charging simply to not be bleeding money every month. So yeah, timing again is very, very important.
And something that we hadn't covered yet was actually occupancy and closing. So in Toronto, occupancy is when you're legally allowed to move into the unit, but you're essentially renting it back from the builder, paying them interest on the outstanding amount, estimated property taxes, and condo fees. That concept in Calgary doesn't really exist. The vast majority of units go straight to closing. All of Truman's builds go straight to closing. There is no occupancy period. So the notice of possession, the date they're giving you, that's your closing date. That's when you need the mortgage. That's when everything is done.
Perfect. Yeah, the great point, Kyle. So that, yeah, there's no occupancy period when we're dealing in Alberta. And flowing now into talking about rental post-closing. Post-closing, sometimes people go, oh, should I sell the property? And I want to kind of handle this all in one answer. So first of all, assignments make zero sense. No, don't assign that's there's no assignment market in Calgary. B, when you're selling assignments, you're only going to be selling to investors. If you're selling to investors, they need a return on their investment. So most likely you would have to give up all your deposits to sell the unit on assignment, and then still pay someone to sell the property on assignment. And then maybe you'll get a deal done. And you'll also have to pay the builder for that right as well. It makes no sense to sell on assignment. And then that's not even getting the tax issues and everything that come with the assignment. Next step is people are then like, well, maybe I'll close and I'll sell right away. You do have that option, you can, but you're always better off buying and holding the property. And if you hold it for 1 year, you're most likely going to make significantly more by buying and holding and closing the property. And also you're, again, in a better tax situation. So if you were to sell the property immediately after closing, any profit on that, you would 100% of that profit you'd have to take that into income. Versus if you hold it for a year, then only 50% of that profit has to go into income, because you need to hold the property for a year to qualify for the capital gains exemption. On top of that, people want to see a property evolve over a year. So you'll have more end users that are looking at a building after a year. The building's been more established. Any issues in the building have been resolved. Also, in 1 year's time, we will be in a much, much, much more favorable interest rate environment. So even if you end up losing a little bit per month, that little bit per month, let's say you're losing $300 per month, throw a number out there, which over 12 months is $3,600. But you're able to sell the property for $20,000 or $30,000 more. And that $3,600 is a direct write-off against the property on your taxes. And plus, you're also paying down money on the with the principal pay down on the property as well. You're gonna be farther ahead if you need to sell, and you'd want to do it at least in a year's time. When we sold these to everyone, it's always about buy and hold. You know, you go back to any of our presentations, we're showing the value of property over 30 years. If you were losing money in your RRSPs, would you be selling your RRSPs and cashing them out right now today? Absolutely not. So you wouldn't want to sell your property now when you're at a low point in the market. By buying and holding over the long run, you will build significant wealth. So again, assignments, no. You know, if you want to sell after closing, you can, but by far, wait at least a year. We tell people 5 years, but wait at least a year, you know, to be before you even start contemplating these things, because that's how you're going to make money. When we looked at York townhomes, when we initially sold those, people that were exiting right after closing, they were barely making money. They're making like five, maybe they net out $5,000. Fast forward a year, they were making $100,000. I'm not saying you're going to make $100,000 in your property by holding it for a year, but I just want to give an example. When people were selling these, like, oh my, I'm interest rates are up, I'm losing money on a monthly basis. They waited 1 year, they would have been up 100, because that's exactly what happened. So you buy and hold real estate, but if you try to do things in the short term, you're only setting yourself up to lose money, and you lose on all the upside of the property. So just really wanted to get that out there to people. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I completely agree.
Yeah, okay,
I've never
great.
told anyone ever to buy and flip it on assignment or right after closing. It's all
No,
about buying and holding over the long term.
go look at all our videos over like a decade. This
Yeah, our names would be Remax Wealth Losers and
yeah,
not builders if we wanted
exactly.
people to do that.
Um, what else do I have here? We talked about utilities, post-closing selling. Um, does anyone here have any questions that they may want? And again, this has all been recorded in our email. We're gonna share with you all our preferred closing partners. Erin over at Chestermere Law, she's our go-to lawyer. We'll send our mortgage partners, we'll send our insurance partners, send our property management partners. Also, you're set up with your contacts, so you can go in and make this process as seamless as possible. But you need to start the process today for your upcoming closings, end of March, into April, into May, into June. And then if you start it now, you will have no issues whatsoever. It'll be a seamless process. And again, if there's any bumps along the way, we're here to answer any questions you may have. So I'll just look at the floor. You're welcome.
Sorry, Alex, well, I guess we
Yeah.
did answer a couple, but there's two vendors that will reach out to you, and I get this question all the time. If it's a condo property, you'll have a company called Catalyst Condos reach out to you. They are the condo management company that will want to set up your account to do your monthly condo fee withdrawal. So they are legitimate. And the processing partner is called Pluto, and they are also legitimate. They'll reach out to you again to verify your contact details so then you can sign up for automatic withdrawals for the fees. So we will put that in the email as well, but wanted to give you a heads up because I've gotten a lot of those in the last week because many of those emails have already started to go out.
Oh yes, the Catalyst email is this yes. Catalyst is the building management company. They're the ones that are managing the whole building. So people do get confused, like, what's this property management company? Because they are a property management company, but that's the building management company. They collect the fees. They're managing all the contractors that work in the building, snow clearing, all that kind of stuff. Yes, and they're the ones, yeah, collecting the maintenance fees for the property. So yes, legitimate. You can reply to their emails and give them the details that you want. And you said the other company is Pluto, which is the actual collection of the money, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect.
Correct. That's right.
Awesome. Just looking at the
And
Q&A.
also,
Yeah.
Also, don't forget about utilities. I don't know if we covered that. Depending
Oh
on
yeah,
the
yeah,
type.
yeah. Utilities, very good. Utilities, we touched on it briefly before. We will include the utility contacts as well. In there. And this is important again because you can forget about these things so easy, but it's so easy to forget about these things, but they need to show proof of utility hookup before you close on the property. Again, very easy to do. You have a couple options for utility hookup in Calgary, which is the one we usually refer to again.
NMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
can
Max,
do they can bundle the stuff for you with the exception of in Chestermere where we have one of our projects closing in the next couple of months. So in the city of Chestermere, you do have to contact the city for water and garbage disposal if you're not living in an apartment condo. If this is a townhouse or a freehold property, then you do need to contact the city to set that up. But everything else you can do with NMAX. It's privatized out there, so there's a bunch of different options, but I've found that NMAX provides overall the best comprehensive service with flexibility and really good rates and
and
their
then
information will
and
be
that
emailed.
does Chestermere as well for the utilities, like
They
most
do
like the
they do
electricity.
they can do hydro, yeah, they can do
Yeah.
hydro, and they can do gas as well. Yeah, hydro and gas, but it's just the water and waste disposal has to go through the city in Chestermere.
Which in those cases it would be for we're dealing with if you bought a townhome or a freehold property, but if you bought in the
Correct.
condos, that's not going to be applicable to you.
That's right.
Great. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Again, this has been recorded. We'll have a big summary email going to everyone going out to you next week with the recording, and we are here to help you close your property as seamless as possible. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, Niesh. Thanks, Kyle. Talk to everyone later.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks,
Bye.
folks.
Bye, everyone.
Enjoy your long weekend.